Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Could you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Langston.
Present.
Commissioner Milch.
Present.
Commissioner Labonte.
Present.
Commissioner Pat Smith.
Present.
Commissioner Mercero.
Present.
Commissioner Volbada. Chair Smith.
Present. Let's do the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Tonight on the regular agenda, we're going to have the monthly planning report, public hearing for file TXT-2022-2, discussion of residential zoning districts citywide, including chapter 17.10 and R-7.2 and chapter 17.12-R-5, and also discussion of our planning commission work plan. I'd like to see can anyone make a motion or regarding the approval of the meeting minutes from July 19th?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Okay, that was first by Commissioner Mercero and seconded by Commissioner Milch. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Mercero.
Good evening.
You're just supposed to say yes. We're approving the minutes.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Commissioner Pat Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Labonte.
Yes.
Commissioner Milch.
Yes.
Commissioner Langston.
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yes. Okay, meeting minutes approved. Next, we're on to the monthly planning report, please.
July was slightly slow for phone calls and emails, as you will see. Is it not on?
No, it's on the volume, just needs to be turned up, I think.
Okay. All right. You can hear me better now.
Much better, thank you.
Great. So in July, we had 2 people come to the counter at the county. We had 38 phone calls and emails, which was down from a high of 70 in June. We had 6 building permits that required land use review. And we had 0 pre-application conferences, and we had a semi-administrative decision, and that is a zoning verification letter that was requested. Those aren't necessarily land use applications, but they are official documents that have land use information in them. And so they are provided with a zoning info number and provided on official letterhead. For someone, often it's for mortgage purposes or for ease of mind when someone is purchasing property. The building permits that were reviewed in July included a repair from fire damage, demolition, manufactured home placement, an addition, and a garage conversion to an accessory dwelling unit. There was 1 building permit that will require land use application and approval, and so I was unable to approve it, but it did go through a review process.
Is that all?
It is.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, the next item, I'm going to go ahead and read this. I'm assuming this is how you want me to open this, Tammy? By reading this?
First, open the public hearing, and then you'll read the information.
Okay, let me do that. And that's the single household residential district, or because I'm looking, normally it has the number.
You mean? Okay, so this is what I read then, okay. Public hearing, TXT 2022 02 proposed amendments to the C2 zoning district and new downtown overlay plan. The Gladstone Planning Commission's public hearing on revisions to the city's C2 community commercial zone, as well as a new downtown core overlay zone, originally scheduled for August 16th, 2022, has been postponed to October 2022, 6:30 p.m. This hearing has been postponed due to the intention of city staff and MIG to respond to I can't say that word, feedback provided by Planning Commission at its July 19th, 2022 work session. MIG is the planning consultant with whom the city has contracted for this project. The Planning Commission feedback at the July work session primarily concerned proposed minimum parking requirements, maximum height requirements, and the boundary of the new overlay zone. In addition, the postponement of the public hearing is due to the intention of the city to do additional outreach to affected parties, including property owners within the potentially expanded boundary on the overlay zone. Yes.
I move that we open the public hearing for item TXT-2022-02 and that we continue the hearing until October 18th, 2022.
I'll second.
Okay. Commissioner Milch made the motion and Commissioner Langston seconded. Tammy, can you do a roll call vote?
Commissioner Langston,
Yes.
Commissioner Milch,
Yes.
Commissioner Labonte,
Yes.
Commissioner Pat Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercero,
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yes. Motion patches. So now we just postpone this until October, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So hold on here. Let me get to the next here. This must be just, then we go on to our work plan. Is that correct?
Oh, item number 4.
Hold on here. Go back there. Okay. Residential codes. All right.
Hi.
Now Joy gets to help us.
Hold tight for just a moment.
Okay.
Good evening. So several months ago, when we were looking at House Bill 2001 Code Amendments, otherwise titled Middle Housing Code Amendments, there was discussion of manufactured homes and a recent bill that was passed by the state legislature that prohibited jurisdictions from treating manufactured homes differently than single-family homes. So tonight we are going to look at that.
Come on, let's go.
I know. In addition, some of you may recall that as we were talking about middle housing, Senate Bill 458 was also mentioned. Senate Bill 458 is the middle housing land division legislation that the legislatures passed as a companion bill to House Bill 2001. Because it impacts middle housing, which is predominantly in the R7.2 zoning district and the R5 zoning district, we will look at Senate Bill 458 after looking at potential amendments related to manufactured homes. So there is not draft code related to Senate Bill 458, but we would like to prepare you for future discussions and receive guidance from you regarding Senate Bill 458. So House Bill 4064. This is the one that says we have to treat manufactured dwellings just like we would treat any single family dwellings. You received this information from DLCD and it is in your meeting minutes from previous meetings, because we have looked at this slightly in previous meetings. However, because there was not a deadline to consider these amendments, we postponed looking at potential amendments related to manufactured homes until after the House Bill 2001 Middle Housing Code amendments were adopted. So that's why we are bringing them forward tonight. And currently, manufactured dwellings have an array of regulations that are found both in 1710 and 1712. Those are the low density residential zoning districts. They have a size limit or a size requirement, actually. There's a whole assortment of items. And when presented to you in May, next slide, please. I identified a couple of items that are still in the PowerPoint, but I wanted to discuss them and see about the direction that you all think staff should go in. One of the options that we have is to remove all of the regulations tied to manufactured dwellings. So we can just remove all of those. That is option A. That is the simplest. However, oftentimes there is an aesthetic or a safety component to regulations. And so there are some things that you may want to consider. And so tonight, option A is just remove any mention of a manufactured dwelling and any regulations that previously applied to manufactured dwellings. This does not apply inside manufactured home parks. So what we are talking about tonight is a single manufactured home on a residentially zoned lot. It does not impact any manufactured home parks that exist or will exist in the future. These are single dwellings that are placed on a single residential lot. In both of our low density residential zoning districts, when developers are proposing homes, they have to include 2 design features. And they have a list of things that they can consider including. The list is in front of you on the screen, and it includes a dormer, 1 or more windows that face the street, a cupola, a bay or bow window, a gable, a covered porch entry, eaves, and an off-site building face or roof. Now, there are some items that are currently in the manufactured home section that you may want to consider adding to that list. One is roof pitch, and the other is a garage or carport. The question for you are these important design features that should be included for any single family home, whether it be stick-built or manufactured home? In your packets, the red line version does not include these 2 pieces. And so tonight, staff needs to know whether it's important to include these items as well. One of the reasons I did not include the roof pitch is a lot of modern homes are getting away from a gable or a specific pitch. The other reason is garages and carports are identified as allowed accessory uses on residentially zoned land. And there is specific requirements about attached garages being 50% or less of the width of the home. So do we need those as design features? If they can have a garage and there's already regulations elsewhere in the code that has information on attached garages, do we want to include these as potential design features for people who are building stick-built or manufactured homes? Comments?
Joey, I understand you to say that there's 10 things on your amended list when you add the two at the bottom. They're only required to have any two of the 10. So, for example, a building that had the proper roof pitch in item I and a garage or carport in item J would meet the standards as written here without including any of the prior 8 things which used to be requirements.
Correct.
At least 2 of the 8 had to be requirements.
Correct.
Do these features meet the standard, what we call clear and objective standards? Are these something that can be approved at the planning administrative level, or are these design features that would need to be done in review by a planning commission?
All of these are items that are clear and objective in my personal opinion. Okay. Because you can look up the definition of a dormer and identify whether a home has one or not. You can look up a definition of a bay window and see if a building plan has one. You can measure the eaves on a building plan to see if they project 6 inches or more from the main line of the building wall. So these are, in my personal opinion, are clear and objective. If you think otherwise, then maybe we need to consider other options.
Actually, I agree with you that they are. I just want confirmation from that from you. And I think you made a good case, as far as I'm concerned, for not including the last 2 and for preserving the more design-related features that were among A through H.
Okay.
So that's my.
Thank you for sharing your opinion. I appreciate that.
Andrell?
I was just curious, is item I more of a aesthetics thing? Is that what they're getting at with that verbiage?
That is the way it is currently read in the manufactured home criteria. And I think it is because it was one of the things that the statutes allowed us to regulate on a manufactured home. And so it ensured that instead of having a flat roof, it had more of a pitch.
Yeah.
And some of that might be the older homes from the 70s. A lot of them have flat roofs.
Sure.
So this may be one way that cities in Oregon chose to reduce the number of old manufactured homes.
Sure. Yeah, I don't see why you would have that information in there, especially with modern day materials. I mean, you can have a successful flat roof, but yeah. So I that's what I was thinking, is they were trying to get away of having those flat roofs, so it'd only be an aesthetic thing at the end of the day.
Yes.
I don't see why we need it.
Any other opinions for or against including these 2 items, I and J?
Commissioner Mercero, do you have input? Excuse me for interrupting you, Joy.
Seems appropriate to me to include.
Even if it means that a single family home may have a garage instead of a dormer or a bow window?
Right.
Okay.
like to ask Commissioner Langston, who's in the building business, 6-inch eaves, that just seems so small.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know why you would want to do that.
well, it's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing, but it isn't going to protect the upper half of a building at all.
The bigger the better. But...
Yes.
Do you have any other input?
No.
Okay. Go ahead. Do you have any input?
Not now, no.
Okay. I'm just wondering, you say that regarding roof pitch and garage and carports are already in there somewhere.
Garages are.
Garages are, but the roof pitch is not.
No.
My only concern would be that should we get a very unique looking manufactured modular home, prefab, whatever you want to call it, that they look more similar to what's already in the neighborhood. So I'm kind of thinking that my input would be I'd like to see I and J added.
Okay.
So anybody else, do we need to take a vote to see what
because
we're
it's
kind of mixed here?
Because it's mixed, I will include it in the drafts that you will consider. And when you have a public hearing or you have more discussion, you can decide at that time.
I could see where these could help if there was an issue because the criteria is there.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else have any input? Go ahead.
Would we also be allowed to require that the dwelling shall include at least 3 of the following or 4 of the following? Many homes have several of these. We've had covered porch interior requirements on our single family homes, I noticed. But someone could get away without porch, without a bay window, without windows that face the lot line, just by providing 2 of the other things. So maybe if we required 3 or 4, we would get the similarity and conformity to neighborhood standards. It would be more likely.
Clackamas County requires 3 of the following design standards. So I'm not sure if there's a limit. I would have to check in and see with the Oregon Revised Statutes if there is a limit to the amount of design standards that you can require. But I know from my work in Clackamas County that 3 is allowed. And so I'll look into that, and you will see 2 revised in the next section, whether it's 3 or 4, depending on what is allowed.
Commissioner, I like your idea. I think there should be more. I'd also like to see us change the eave requirement. I think that's 6 inches is nothing.
Do you happen to know what Clackamas County or Oregon City?
Yeah, what the standard is for eaves?
I believe Clackamas is 12 inches.
Yeah, I would like to see that.
That is from memory.
Can we highlight that in our packet?
Sure.
For discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to see 12 instead of 6. I think you were going to say something. I'm sorry.
I mean, the more of these we ask for, I guess to what proportion does that increase the building of or purchase of these types of homes? Or does it?
The one home that I have seen in the last 2.5 years, 3 years of reviewing building permits that does not meet the requirements was actually a modern home. It was not a manufactured home. And they had to modify it to get a 3rd item. And this was in Clackamas County, not Gladstone. And so I don't see that it will increase the cost or prohibit any of the homes. A lot of these could be on any type of home.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or discussion?
Well,
Go ahead.
There's more.
Okay.
Go ahead. If you have discussion about these specifics,
I think I'm open to the idea of, 3 to 4 of,
Okay.
of the items.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Open, yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know what that is. What is, could you explain what a cupula is? Cupola, or however you pronounce it?
I'm looking to Commissioner Commissioner Langston, but
You don't know
You
what
don't know
that is
what it is?
either?
I think it's one of those
bet Michael
little,
knows, don't you?
the little rectangle things that allow air into the attic that sticks out and project.
I thought that was.
I think that's what it is.
At the end of like a truss on the outside. Oops.
Michael's Commissioner Milch is looking it up.
Lookout tower.
I was gonna say the helipad, but
Here's a definition from, I think it's from Wikipedia. A small dome, especially a small dome on a drum on top of a larger dome adorning a roof or ceiling. A gun turret, that would not apply. Well, then there's another definition related to that. So this is the architectural definition.
Okay.
In something more like a New England home, it would be a little tower on the top with sort of a cone-shaped point and sometimes a weather vane on top of it. Try to picture that from your, recollection of that style architecture. It's not something we see very often in Gladstone.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and continue, Joy.
Okay. The other items that were not size related and were not found relating to single family homes that the Gladstone Code had related to manufactured homes related to foundations and how much of a enclosed material could be seen. So, in a manufactured home that is placed there, they often have skirting or material enclosing the bottom where the home was placed. And in stick-built homes, they can have foundation. You can see foundations as well. And so if you wanted to regulate manufactured homes skirting or that area below the wall or the walls, you could do that for both stick-built and manufactured homes. And so there are some items that related to foundations and the design of foundations that were in the code that were modified to be a potential item 3 in the single family residential zones for designs. And they're in front of you. No more than 12 inches of the enclosing material is exposed above grade. Where the building site has a slope grade, no more than 12 inches of the enclosing material shall be exposed on the uphill side of the home. So if you have a basement, you can still have more of that enclosing material. If the dwelling sits on a basement, the 12-inch limitation shall not apply. So my whole thing is blown out of the water. But it's still, if you have a slope where you have 12 inches on one side and then 24 inches on the other, the uphill side will have no more than 12 inches. So it might be a crawl space, or it might be the underpinnings of a manufactured home. But if it's on a basement, then it's not regulated. And that is the way it is now for manufactured homes. The question is, do you want that in the code for stick-built and manufactured homes?
Why wouldn't we necessarily?
I don't know why you wouldn't want this for a stick-built home.
So you're saying that residential homes don't have a requirement they can, if they wanted to, they could start their uh, siding right at the floor plate at the stem wall, and then that whole, like if it was that concrete protruded out of the ground 3 feet, they could have 3 feet of concrete showing and just start their siding at the floor plate.
Yeah, currently these only apply to manufactured homes, and stick-built homes could have 3 feet of concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so typically with building, you want to start your siding at least 6 inches above above grade, because then you won't have the wicking issue of moisture getting into your envelope system. So I mean, definitely it, it would make sense to have it up the 12 inches. I don't know if it needs to be that high specifically. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me that if it was a concrete foundation, that you could basically have your whole crawl space. You could have a crawl space you could walk through, and you don't have to cover it or design, make it blend in more of the home. So I know in some of the amendments we made, we couldn't use language that was discriminatory to a certain building type. So if we added something like this to manufactured homes, that would be allowable, because if it's specifically
This would apply to all homes, because currently it only applies to manufactured homes.
Yeah.
Should apply to all.
So currently there is this requirement: if someone wants to place a manufactured home on a single family residential lot, they have to follow these design standards related to their foundation materials.
Yeah.
So to clarify, when I look at pages 4-7 and 4-8 of our package, that's where we have the red line code. And at the top of page 4-8, the sentences that you've included here are the ones that are still written in black print. So that's part of our existing code for manufactured homes only. And the intent of what you're proposing is to broaden the application of that code to all homes, not just manufactured homes. And from what I hear from Commissioner Langston, these would not be unreasonable applications to have requirements to have for what we're calling stick-built homes. That's probably the way most of them are made anyway. I'm trying to think of where the exposed foundation is on my house, and it's 2 levels, and it's thicker on the bottom level, but it's probably about 12 inches on the top. That's very anecdotal based on one house alone, but with the opinion of someone who's in the building industry as well, this sounds like a good approach to continue, to allow us to treat them the same way. So we're not modifying stick-built standards or existing standards for stick-built homes to the manufactured homes, which really need a foundation. We're going the other way around. We're taking the existing standards for manufactured homes and broadening.
So they'll be more consistent to just a regular home.
So that a regular stick-built home would have the same regulations as manufactured homes.
I like that idea. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to point out, my home was just built 2 years ago, and it's only has 8 inches of foundation, and then the siding starts. So it's pretty common. It would be a little bit I think for anybody who lives in our area, it would be kind of strange to see a 3 foot concrete wall below, but unless it was, built up on a hill or like you said. But I think it wouldn't be, it would be pretty similar to what we're used to looking at on a regular basis.
My foundation is 12 inches that you see.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have input, questions, discussion? Andrew, you look like you have something to say. Just thinking?
Thank you.
Okay, continue, Joy. Thank you.
So with that, these are the manufactured dwelling requirements that are currently in the code. And item A would be removed entirely. Item B would apply to stick-built and manufactured homes. You want to see item C in there for more discussion, and that is the roof pitch.
Correct.
The item D would be removed entirely, and that is the exterior siding and roofing, which in color, material, and appearance is similar to the exterior siding and roofing on surrounding dwellings. The manufactured dwellings, there is a section in there about energy efficiency. It is my understanding that when they get a building permit to place a manufactured home, they are reviewed to ensure that the residential specialty code is met and that the exterior thermal envelope meets those requirements. I can double check with the building code division about that to ensure, but that is the reason I did not propose to leave that in there. Then the manufactured dwelling or a garage or carport will be a design feature that a manufactured dwelling or a stick-built home will be able to consider in their design to meet the design criteria.
May I ask on A there?
Yeah.
Manufactured dwelling shall be. I'm sorry. A dwelling shall be multi-sectional and enclose a space of not less than 1,000 square feet. So are we saying that they can be built at any square foot, or is this?
Think about accessory dwelling units that have a limit of 800 square feet. That is a residence. That is a stick-built single-family home. If we limit manufactured dwellings to 1,000 square feet, we have to limit residential homes to 1,000 square feet.
Now, I remember we had a discussion about minimum size for some of these. Is that?
For accessory dwelling units?
Yes.
Yes.
And I believe we landed at 600 square feet or something along these lines.
220.
220. Okay. And that was in part to kind of separate it from something that might be like an RV or something like this. Correct. That could be used. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I have heard the direction that you all would like to go regarding roof pitch and garages. At your direction, we have the option of amending the PAPA notice that it has been submitted to DLCD for the downtown amendments to include these so that we can come into compliance with House Bill 4064 following the public hearing in October and following the city council hearing that that comes after your recommendation and your public hearing.
That would be in November, wouldn't it? The council meeting.
Assuming they have room on their agenda. Yes. Okay. So if that is okay with you, you can lead us to amend the PAPA notice to include these amendments.
Planning commissioners, anybody? Maybe I should get a consensus. Go ahead, Michael.
During while we were working on the middle housing amendments, we got some late notice from DLCD regarding some items that we needed to, kind of rush through and get some new language on. So I think the farther in advance we let them know that we're considering this, the greater opportunity they will have to provide feedback if there's anything that we are overlooking, or their standards sometimes are a little different, a little stricter than the standard interpretation of the layperson or even the professional. So I think this is a good approach to get that notice out early and plan to do it at the same hearing.
Okay. Commissioner Langston,
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner Mercero,
I agree with that.
Commissioner Smith,
I also agree.
Sounds good.
I agree as well. So yes, please do so.
Perfect. So at the beginning of the meeting, we talked about how the manufactured home regulations impact the low density residential zoning district. Middle housing land divisions that are required by Senate Bill 458 will also impact the low density residential zoning districts, because the middle housing code amendments are allowed outright in the R5 and R7.2 zoning districts. Therefore, what we are discussing from here on out is a different state regulation that was also mentioned during the House Bill 2001 amendments. It was also mentioned in that email from DLCD, and it is related to expedited or middle housing land divisions. So anytime middle housing is developed on R5 or R7 zone land, they could go through a middle housing land division. Currently, we would be reviewing them based on the Senate Bill 458 language that says we shall. However, Senate Bill 458 does allow some options where it allows a city or county to consider or may allow these other items. So tonight, I'm going to walk through Senate Bill 458 so that you are aware of another law that we have to come into compliance with. So if the application for a middle housing land division includes separate utilities for each dwelling unit, the development of middle housing, easements necessary for locating, accessing, replacing, and servicing all utilities, if they're proposed, easements that are proposed for driveways or parking or dedicated common area, if those are included in the application, and there is exactly one dwelling unit on each resulting lot or parcel, and there is evidence that the buildings or structures will comply with the building codes, then we have to review it as a middle housing land division. When you all considered the middle housing amendments, there was a minimum lot size placed in the R5 and R7.2 zoning districts of 3,600 square feet for middle housing. So if there is one dwelling unit on each lot, we have to allow a middle housing land division for each dwelling unit as long as there's 3,600 square feet of land area. And as long as the application includes the items that are identified in Senate Bill 458. However, there are some things that we can consider and that we may do under Senate Bill 458. A city or county may add conditions to the approval of a tentative plan related to the prohibition of further division of the lots or parcels, requiring that a notation appear on the final plat indicating that the approval was given under a middle housing land division or expedited land division. That way in 20 years, If there is still a prohibition against further dividing the lot, the plat that created the lot says that it was a middle housing land division and people know. So those are two items that we can consider applying in our code. There are other things that we cannot change. And one of those is the timing. The reason that it is referred to as the expedited land division is that it is under a quicker timeline. Currently, state law allows us 30 days upon the receipt of a land use application to determine if it's complete. Senate Bill 458 gives us 21 days. It has the same amount of time where an applicant can provide the missing information. That is 180 days from the date that the application was first submitted. That's normal. But then it has additional timelines, including 14 days for neighbors to comment. The noticing that is required is comparable to the noticing that is required for hearings that come before you or administrative decisions. But it's the time of those noticings are different. As I mentioned, prior to a hearing before you all, public is given 20 days to comment, to provide testimony. For a middle housing land division, the public is given 14 days to comment prior to the city administrator or the decision maker from making a decision. That way, it's a completely different animal. So for administrative decisions currently, neighbors are notified of the decision within 100 feet of the subject property, but they don't have 14 days to comment prior to that decision being made. A public hearing, a quasi-judicial hearing that you all hold, neighbors within 250 feet have 20 days to comment on the proposal and provide testimony or evidence. All of these decisions that the city of Gladstone make pertaining to land use have to be complete within 120 days of receiving a complete application. Senate Bill 458 says, nope, you have to do it within 63 days.
So does that preclude, I mean, when you say 63 days, that wipes out all this other stuff, the 14-day, all that kind of stuff?
No, the 14 days is within that 63 days.
Gotcha.
So we have 21 days to determine if the application is complete. Okay. And then once it's deemed complete, we have 63 days to have a complete decision. Okay. Which is the time frame we like to do for land use applications, but there are some times where it extends to 120 days. It also says that we can't require a whole hearing on the application. So it can't be a decision that you all hear through a quasi-judicial public hearing. It's going to be an administrative decision. That's why it provides notice to neighbors, but it's an administrative decision. So we have to allow middle housing land divisions, but there are some options. We can prohibit further division of the lots or parcels. We can require that a notation appear on the final plat that it was a middle housing land division or expedited land division. We can require street frontage improvements that apply to middle housing. So those sidewalks that were part of the House Bill 2001 related amendments, we can require those sidewalks for middle housing. We may choose to allow the submission of an application for middle housing at the same time as a submission for building permits. What Clackamas County has done is they require copies of the plan submitted for a building permit to come in with the middle housing land division application to prove that it is middle housing. That it's not just a single family home on a 3,600 square foot lot. Senate Bill 458 also does say that we can require dedication of right-of-way if the original parcel did not previously provide that dedication. And the city is not required to allow an accessory dwelling unit on a lot or parcel resulting from a middle housing land division. So if you have a duplex that has a shared wall, and you divide it down the middle of that shared wall through a middle housing land division, now you have two single family homes that just have a shared wall. The city is not required to allow an accessory dwelling unit for each of those homes. So those are the options. The approval criteria is pretty prescriptive. It says what the notice must contain. It says the time frame upon which the applications have to be reviewed. It even has the prescriptions on what we can require in the application submittal. So if we incorporate Senate Bill 458, which is the middle housing land divisions in the low density residential zoning districts, it will have significant changes to the code. You'll see changes in the subdivision and partition section, in the design standards for land divisions and property line adjustments, in the appeals, because Senate Bill 458 says that the appeal period is 14 days. Currently, appeal period for administrative decision is 15 days. And the hearings, section 17.94, identifies what decisions are city administrators and what are the planning commission decisions. And that section of the city administrators 17.94 section could be modified to include the prescription provided by Senate Bill 458. So there's a lot of changes, but only a few options.
And you'd like to know what options we'd like.
Can I tell you, can I talk for just a few more minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I would definitely appreciate your recommendations.
Great. So Senate Bill 458 says that the tentative approval of middle housing land division is void if and only if a final subdivision or partition plat is not approved within 3 years of the tentative approval. Therefore, I would like you to consider putting an expiration date for partitions. Currently, partitions that were approved, a partition is the division of land into 3 or fewer parcels in a given year. So if you divide your land into 3 parcels, it's a partition. I have seen a partition approved in the 1980s that met the conditions and is valid, but no final plat was ever provided. And now they're going through maybe in the future, a property line adjustment. It's fine. However, in 2007, the Gladstone Municipal Code was modified to include habitat conservation area. And that environmental overlay zone has requirements specifically pertaining to partitions and subdivisions. So if a 1980 partition happened to be in a habitat overlay zoning district without an expiration, there's no way to ensure that the dedication of conservation for the habitat is done. So I would request that you consider an expiration for all partitions. If there is an option to have a expiration for middle housing land divisions that are 3 or less parcels. So Senate Bill 458 says that middle housing land divisions have a implementation window of 3 years. A middle housing land division can be a partition or a subdivision. Currently, partitions don't have an expiration date. Currently, subdivisions, you have to provide a final plat that is consistent with the tentative plan to the city administrator or designee within 1 year of the date of final decision. That's fast. To get a surveyor out and to get all the bonds and all the road improvement frontages, a year is tight. So there is the potential of modifying the subdivision regulations to also be 3 years. Now, there is a caveat to that 1 year approval implementation window, is that it has the ability for an applicant to request you a 1 year extension period. So currently the code would allow someone to have 2 years. That's still kind of tight. And if we just make it a uniform 3 year implementation window for subdivisions, partitions, and middle housing land divisions, then it provides a little bit more flexibility for developers and homeowners. The other thing that I would like you to consider is whether it is sufficient to provide us with a final plat, or if a final plat needs to be recorded. Because records, you know, we do our best, but I had a coworker who was working in Clackamas County area, and there was a partition from the 1980s. A final plat was never recorded until 2003. And so they can provide it. It was provided to the county. They met the implementation window. They met their criteria, but it wasn't actually kept somewhere that was public. And so I would urge you to consider having it be where it actually gets recorded as well. It's submitted to us and recorded within that 3 years if you choose to extend the period to 3 years. And that would also give them time to do the recording if you extend that period. So with that, do you also want to add this to the PAPA notice? Because Senate Bill 458 is required. Now we could do an additional notice in the Clackamas Review and have additional information on our website, and through the public hearing process, the public would hear about it. But we could also incorporate language related to Senate Bill 458 into the code through the public hearing that is held for downtown amendments.
So you want a consensus from all of us here? Just on this, or all of the things, the other 2 items? Go ahead, Michael.
Just a couple of questions. If the notice is given to nearby residents, but there is no hearing process, then the residents, I assume they always have a right to write a letter to the decision maker, and you would normally take into consideration that input from citizens in making a decision. It just wouldn't be done in a public hearing setting.
Correct.
Okay.
Written or a phone call, an email, a letter, or a phone call could be ways of receiving the testimony from the neighbors.
Okay. Prior to my coming on the planning commission, I believe there was a lot of situations where approval was given on a land use matter that had a 1 year expiration, and people were not able to finish it within that 1 year. And is that where we added the possibility of extending it to 2 years? Is that the answer?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You're talking about 3 years here for middle housing land division or expedited land division. This would not apply to the other kinds of land. The 3-year change would not apply to other kinds of land use matters that we would consider. Is that correct?
Correct. Currently, the code allows design review applicants 2 years to implement design review, 1 year for conditional use. This 3-year, if you choose, would be middle housing land divisions, partitions, and subdivisions, so that they all have the same implementation window.
One more clarification. Even though they have the right to request this land division at the time that they are getting building permits and starting, so someone builds a duplex, they might build it with the intention of having both units be rentals. For example, nobody would own property on either side, none of the tenants. But they could build it with the intention of it being 2 fee simple owned homes for someone, which is why you want to have that split right away. When this commission approved the construction of a triplex on East Exeter, about a block east of the fire department a few years ago, there was a small single family home. They built a new 3-unit building with garages and lots of parking and pretty good size. But it's still just on one piece of property. That property is not subdivided into separate ownership for each one. But we would now, once our code is amended to comply with this law, a situation like that would enable the owner of a large property, if all the minimum lot size requirements were met, to build a triplex that could be owned by 3 different people.
I like that idea.
I think for the purposes of expanding more housing options, I like this idea. When we first started talking about this years ago, I said what's missing in Gladstone is an R2.4 zone, something where you'd have the ability to build on a smaller lot and to own a home on a smaller lot. This gets us close to that. And so as far as the specific, which of these specific options we accept, it gets pretty complicated. My only concern about doing it in the same notice is we may get a whole lot of public input when it comes to just the downtown part. Adding the one part we talked about earlier might not add too much. This might be a little more controversial, although it seems so technical, maybe you'll just slide it in. Who knows? It's just a matter of whether we're creating a super hearing that is going to be beyond our ability to act.
Andrell, do you have input?
Yeah, that would be my only concern. Do we have the capacity to handle all those items? That would be my only concern. Hard for me to envision how everything would play out. Yeah, I just don't want to put too much on the plate.
Commissioner Mercereau, your input, please.
I like your suggestions, Joy. Making the 3 different, a 3-year requirement will help cut a lot of confusion out of people's thoughts that may not get the details quite right, and would give them time to in fact do the job right. That doesn't mean they're not going to miss it still, but I think it'll give everybody a better chance to meet it. I recommend going your direction, your suggestions.
Commissioner Smith?
I concur with Joy's findings, but I've listened to my colleagues down to my right here. Both of them raised the question of is there too big a bite out of the sandwich, trying to do all this at one piece? Is it possible to segment this somehow and address it in smaller parts?
There's always ways to segment it. However, because it is an amendment that is legislative in nature, it has to go to DLCD and Metro, and it has to be 35 days prior to the public hearing. So it's not likely. It could be September. It just seems like it would be too soon. So the question is, then we would be pushing it to November. There is a pre-application meeting for a middle housing land division on Thursday. Right now, we have shalls in Senate Bill 458, and we can follow that, but we don't have anything in the code about these options. So we're coming up to, do we want it in October because of the time sensitive nature and because it is state mandated? Or is it fine just to be in November or December?
Andrew?
I tend to like to have a little more time for these big decisions.
I'm in agreement with all your suggestions. I like being consistent. I like the recommendations about keeping everything, if you're going to do time limits and whatnot, to be consistent with that. I think it's important with all the, with the land bill and then the 458, we need to have this verbiage in. And I know we're looking at a time constraint. I don't see any problem moving forward. And I'm actually for it, but do you want to vote from us or?
I think a vote would provide, it is not a decision on any of what has been discussed tonight. Right. It would just be, do we amend the PAPA notice to include changes related to Senate Bill 458 and House Bill 4046? Or do we put those on their own separate tract? Or do we add 4046 to the downtown? So there are three options. Keep it all as one. The Senate Bill 458, House Bill 4046, and the downtown code amendments. Separate them into two, with the downtown and House Bill 4046 on one and Senate Bill 458 on another, or separated into two with Senate Bill 458 and House Bill 4046 and the downtown on its own.
That would be, I believe, my vote.
The downtown commercial area on one PAPA notice and the residential related items on another.
Are there any disadvantages or advantages to doing it all at once, doing them all together, as opposed to separated?
Time. It reduces the amount of time that you and City Council spend on public hearings.
Okay.
If you lump it all together. However, it may mean that you have one long one. If you separate it out, then these required ones may go quick, and downtown may get more discussion. And you have separate, you could still have them both in October, but it would be two PAPA notices and two
hearings.
Yeah. So there is benefit to separating them because it's commercial versus residential. But it is also, it would be hard knowing how November and December meetings sometimes get canceled because of holidays, it would be hard for me to recommend postponing it until that time. But it's not out of the question. It could be whatever timeline you want.
Commissioner Milch.
Although I raised the initial issue of whether we could do all this in one meeting, when I looked at the agenda for tonight's meeting, I thought that this whole section that we had in our packet was merely to sort of proofread the changes that we had made in the code before. I didn't realize it was a consideration of new legislation. And perhaps if, and so a lot of this was coming to us sort of for the first time tonight, and it's hard to react to all these various options on first hearing. If we were to get your slide presentation sent to us or made available to us for additional review, we might be up on this subject a little better by the time we got to October. If we put all three in the notice, would it be legal for us to continue the hearing on one or two of the matters that night if we were not able to complete all three? The way we did tonight with the downtown. So we go in optimistic and say, we're going to do all these, and a couple of them are just fairly technical. The commission's had a chance to review and we support this direction. But the ones that are most likely to involve some public testimony and input, which is the reason they're being postponed now, maybe that'll occupy the most of our time. I tend to be accentuate the positive kind of guy and have this hope that we could do it that way. But now I think for the reasons you've mentioned, the time constraints, maybe I would favor doing the notice for all three and go in with the intent of doing that. But give us a little more preparation in advance so that we come in a little more conversant in these rules.
So would you like us to do some sort of vote?
I would like to ask, and I may be slightly off base here, but if we try to do downtown and residential in the same meeting, we may have rival public constituencies, homeowners,
versus business, yeah.
Avenue are going to have a whole different outlook than business owners and developers on Portland, reside on Portland. I'd like to get it done as quickly as possible. Also, I know you're a Mr. Positive, and that's appreciated. I'm a little bit more of a conservative in nature. I'd like to have little smaller bites and do each one. Unless I'm just completely wrong here and thinking it would be better separately. But it just seems to me we're going to end up in a public hearing with a lot of people here with rival interests.
No, I think you make a very good point about the more specific interests involved. That hadn't occurred to me. I just think of every citizen as being concerned about every issue, but that's clearly not the case in this kind of a thing.
So I've got a question for you. Would it be appropriate and legal for us to do the notice for all three, but yet have separate public hearings, perhaps, for residential and commercial? I'm kind of getting that sense that that's what everyone's feeling here. Am I wrong? Go ahead.
Could they even be done in the same evening? Just one and then the other, as opposed to just throwing all the clothes in the wash?
Because I want to be, I want to do this within our time constraint. I know we're kind of at the edge here for the end of the year, so.
I apologize. I was using Excel to calculate what the last day was if we were to consider it in September, if we held a public hearing, and it was today. So September is not an option. So it could be two different notices, two different public hearings. And we could have one in November or both in October. but I missed the last thing that you said, Chair Smith. So
About, oh, doing all the Papa notices at the same time and then having the hearings, 2 different hearings.
we could do that.
How does everyone feel about that?
I like having the downtown portion separate from the others. I think
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there because I can see that there would be conflicts. So,
Okay.
so I believe unless someone else has anything to add to it, let's do all of the notices, the Papa notices. And then, and we could do them the same night, just one being for the commercial. And then if it doesn't pertain to you, please leave and we'll carry on with residential.
I'm open to having multiple meetings in October if we need to.
Yeah, same here. Or one in
mean, like,
September and one in October.
You know, a week apart or same, you know, Tuesday, Thursday, whatever. I'm open to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we could have one in September and one in October and meet our deadline, couldn't we? Or no, the deadline's in October.
September will not work.
It won't work. Okay. So it'd have to be in October. 2 meetings in October then. Public hearings, excuse me.
I would do the same night, but I would be much more open to trying to set them up 2 different evenings. But if that's the direction we're heading in, more than willing to.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a long meeting in October.
I think
our normal October meeting would be on the 18th. We could potentially have another meeting if it were a week later. If we continued part of the hearing to another week, it would be the 25th. That would normally be a city council meeting night if they were to have a second meeting that month.
Yeah, a work session.
But, you know, we could schedule for a different day of the week too.
And it all depends on how much public testimony we have. If we don't have that much, the meetings will go rather quickly. Yeah. But I do believe, unless anyone else has anything to add, that is the direction we'd like to go. And thank you for all your hard work, Joy. Thank you very, very much. Okay. I think we're on to our last item.
Public comment?
Do you have any public comment, sir? No? Our work plan objectives. I do believe everybody received this email message with Jackie, City Administrator Betts's input as to what she'd like to see us work on. And this is for 2023, correct, Tammy?
Correct. This will be, it's actually going to be a 2-year plan. They're working towards 2-year work plans now. And so this would be starting in 2023 and continuing through 2025.
Okay, looking at our, our current objectives, we're still working on all of the changes and implementations of our new codes. And the audit, housing code audit, we completed that. We still haven't gotten very far on a transportation parking management strategy. So that's something I think we still need to carry over into 2023-24, correct?
Right.
Okay. So does anybody have any additional things they'd like to add to what City Administrator Betts already presented? Commissioner Milch?
Well, I see a couple of different things. The email that Jackie sent to Tammy that we got copies of has some different items from the work plan objectives that's in our agenda.
Right.
So I would like a little more information on what is meant by certified local government. Thank you.
So a certified local government is an organization that works on historic preservation. So it is an entity that has bylaws and works with the State Historic Preservation Office to further the historic preservation of Gladstone. If you choose to become a certified local government, there will have to be bylaws. They will have to meet 4 times a year. they will be eligible for a grant from the state to support historic preservation.
Okay.
And it will further the city's historic preservation goals.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, when I read the agenda for tonight about the residential code sections, I thought we were going to just be kind of doing a general review of them and sharing comments about other things that we might want to work on amendments. So I'm also supportive of number one on City Administrator Betts' email about considering a major rewrite to streamline the code and bring it into better alignment with other policies. And also one area which I felt we did not address adequately when we worked on the House Bill 2001 amendments was the need for clear and objective standards on some items. I think it's very important to have a streamlined process for getting approval. And as we initiate making changes in our whole planning staffing situation and have our own city employees doing planning for us, there may be administrative decisions that can be made at that level without involving the planning commission if some of our standards were more clear and objective. The particular section that concerns me, as it's been the last several months, is on the accessory dwelling units. There are similar requirements to what we looked at tonight regarding roof pitch and other things like that. And I will say I'm a subscriber to both Atomic Ranch magazine, which deals with mid-century modern homes, and Dwell magazine, which deals with very contemporary design homes. And I've seen pictures of a lot of homes built out of shipping containers and shaped like tents and other things. And I don't know why someone who would want to put an accessory dwelling unit in their backyard would want to make it so, conforming to the design of their existing home. So I would like to see removal of some of those regulations. But again, I'm just one person. But that's the kind of thing where we could look at it and get some public input. So I'd like to see us look at the rest of the zoning regulations and also look at the process for streamlining approval of housing in particular. And as Commissioner Langston knows, equity investors who put money into developments want to see a return on their investment right away. And the longer it takes a project to be completed, the longer it takes for the developer to make enough profit to pay back those investors. So if we can cut down the time for project approval and and completion, I think we're doing our citizens a great service by enabling that housing that we've been missing to go in.
Commissioner Langston?
Yeah. Yeah, I like Administrator Betts' suggestions. I think they do kind of coincide with some of the objectives we had on our list. So I would like to just kind of see pull off a couple objectives. Like I think number 2 kind of is part of what she has on her list. So
right.
Yeah, I just kind of want to blend them together. We don't need the ADUs outside of what Commissioner Milch mentioned, maybe looking at the clear and objective, but I would assume that might fall under implementing a process and improvement.
Yep.
So
that's the way I see it as well.
Yeah,
yes.
Yep. So I guess I'm willing to adopt Administrator Betts' info and leave our probably 3 and 4.
Okay. And I was just going to fill in a couple blanks here. Just these are going to be major this is going to be a lot of work.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure that you're wanting to implement all of these,
Yeah.
or if there's some that rise to a higher level than others. Because like I said, I mean, if you look at those, that's going to require a lot of work by the planning commission as well as staff.
Mhm.
So, you know, maybe you could put them in order, or if there's some that are, you look more of a priority. Just wanting to point that out.
Thank you. Yeah, we're not going to achieve all of this probably. Not in a perfect world. Commissioner Mercero.
I agreed with Jackie and Tammy's thoughts that they're all important. We may be able to prioritize them like Tammy's suggesting. But I'm not sure how I would prioritize them at the moment. And I'm not sure having all four is wrong, in that we may decide one or the other might be actually split into, in other words, 2 and 3 could go together, or something that we may decide upon. So I like all the thoughts, especially since I understand what the certified local government status means.
Commissioner Smith?
I think probably not clandestinely that city administrator has prioritized these for us. It seems to be 1 through 4. Seems to be a good way to approach them. Number 3, from a relative I had lunch with today who works in another municipal government in Oregon, he asked me specifically if we were going to be addressing this climate friendly and equitable communities. And it apparently just passed less than a month ago.
Yep.
So, and it seems to me to be the type of regulation, while I'm not poo-pooing the necessity of it, it seems to have more application the larger the community is. So probably not, shouldn't be a number 1 priority in Gladstone. I do think 1 and 2, that she's got those in the correct order.
Yep. Thank you. Andrew?
Yes. So if we're looking at updating the city's comprehensive plan, specifically dealing with downtown, if of course we adopt that, what might that process look like, and would it be necessary? Sure. Regarding number 2, what would the process look like to update the comprehensive plan, and would it be necessary?
That's the downtown revitalization.
That's the process we're already kind of going through.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is the process of updating the actual the comprehensive, because we're talking about updating our code. The comprehensive plan is a bit different, correct?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no, yeah.
The comprehensive plan is the overarching guiding document that informs the code.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do a simple incorporation of the downtown revitalization plan in the overlay zone by referencing them in an ordinance and attaching them as a reference document to the comprehensive plan. That doesn't help people who pick up the comprehensive plan understand that there are these goals and priorities in downtown, because most people that pick up the comprehensive plan are not going to read the appendices. So what you may be doing with the downtown revitalization plan may incorporate some language in the actual plan, or it may just be as a reference document to the comprehensive plan, part of that data that is used to inform the code. And I'm not sure how MIG is going to direct you down that path.
Right.
And so if it's just as reference, then there would be work next year to modify the language to bring in the priorities of the downtown revitalization plan and the overlay zone into the actual language of the land use section of the comprehensive plan.
And is that something we have to do regardless?
You can amend the comprehensive plan just by referencing the zoning amendments. So in the way that you would word the ordinance 1517 could say, and amend the comprehensive plan to include the downtown revitalization overlay zone as referenced. And that would be it. But again, that's not user friendly. And so
well, I'm just going to say, and actually that's what we've done dozens of times over the years. And the city has enacted ordinances. They are technically amendments to the comprehensive plan, but they are not we have not amended the meat of the plan, the basic goals that were established back in April of 1979. Right. So some are concerned that should be redone because it's been a long time. But I think Planner Field's point is very good. Referencing these things they're not as visible. But when the city council adopted the downtown revitalization plan without making the code changes back in 2018, I believe it was, or 17, it became part of the comprehensive plan. Yeah. But it did not amend what I'm calling the meat of the plan.
And would that ultimately be something that the planning commission would or would it go through city council to make those types of changes official?
Well, I believe there's currently somebody working on rewriting a lot of our codes and ordinances. Is that not correct? Didn't we hire? Oh, it was just a certain portion of the codes. That's right. Okay. So in effect, I'm assuming somebody that we procured to do that would help us do the deep dive meat and potatoes of rewriting our codes and ordinances. Would that be correct, Tammy? Because we're not qualified nor educated to rewrite all those codes.
Correct. Yes. No, you would have guidance on that. Okay. Definitely. Okay. But
I don't have a problem with all 4 of these. I do think that we need to create this list though, so that the city council can approve what we're going to work on, and let alone maybe add something more to it. Because they need to give us their direction of what they want us to focus on as well. So my suggestion would be that we list all 4 and let the city council decide what is the top priorities. Would that work with everyone here? I mean, they are going to be giving us the ultimate.
Correct. This will be going before the city council. Correct.
Okay. I would say throw in the top 4 here into this and let them decide which priority they want it to be assigned.
Now that said, we had mentioned earlier regarding, let's say, the transportation parking management strategy. That's something that we haven't quite, we
haven't even touched on it.
We haven't touched it all. I mean, is that something that we're also recommending here?
Tammy, could we add that to see if that's something they want us to look at?
You're wanting the current number 4 added
Correct.
on to? Okay.
Correct.
We can certainly do that.
Yeah. And then let them decide the top 3 of what they really want. Yes, Joy.
It is my understanding that the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities initiatives has a lot to do with parking.
Okay.
So that parking management may be part of that.
Okay. Can we
add it to the back of that one?
Yeah. Could we get some sort of clarification of that when it's presented to the city council so that we know that will be addressed in it? So everybody.
And I guess, could you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I believe you, but I want to know if it's restricting in any way or.
I do not have the expertise. I have not read what has been adopted. So I can't elaborate further. I just know that it's going to be impacting parking in unincorporated areas of Clackamas County. And I assume that it will also be impacting parking here.
Okay. Thank you very much.
How it's impacting it, I don't know.
And do we, that'd be great information to have. Is that something we can get sent along or?
Okay. Commissioner Mercero.
I had one question in my mind. We asked for the council's input. I believe if that's the case, we need to get that soon, in that half the council maybe be gone and there's nobody else taking on the idea to, and even though the new people may get in there, they have to learn what the job is before they can really make any good opinions.
I believe this list will be submitted at the next city council meeting. Is that correct?
I'm not sure which meeting it will be, and they may be having a work session with the planning commission as well to discuss the work plan.
That's fine too. Okay. So it will be addressed. Thank you. Does anybody else have any input?
One more thing about the climate friendly and equitable communities initiatives. This was, a couple of years ago when Commissioner Malachi Delfweld was on the commission. He was concerned about these issues and researched a lot of what was going on at the state legislature level. And in some ways, local communities are looking to things like in Milwaukee recently, they floated the idea of not allowing gas appliances in new home construction, to shift to electrical for everything, because that was one where there were more renewable sources of creating electricity. That was one way of addressing climate. But I think what we're going to find here is that doing infill development and creating walkable communities and some of the other things that we're doing through the middle housing is itself a very climate focused direction for a city to go in. So I think it'll be a nice combination of those. And if the council agrees that this is something we could address, it could go in a lot of directions, but parking, walkability, public transit, all those in some ways are climate things. We don't always think of them as that, but the transportation is a big source of the climate problems we have, and that's why they're likely to be in some of the legislation we'd be looking at.
According to the climate friendly and equitable communities rulemaking, transportation accounts for 38% of Oregon's climate pollution. So that's significant.
It is.
Got to get rid of the red lights.
Well, it's certainly being in Gladstone, we have tens of thousands of cars going through, whether it be on 205 or 99. So we, in a lot of ways, we may feel that impact or pretty significant.
When this topic came up, and knowing the information about like our new position at the grant writer, I had aspirations to try to find something out there that was really cool that we might be able to work on and improve something to the city. But I just fell a little short of that research. But I was just thought with these new resources that we're starting to build up our government. I just thought it would be cool to figure out something that would be cool that we felt like was lacking in the area and be able to go for it. But maybe take a look at it next year.
You're saying as far as a grant or something?
Yeah, just something to add to our list that we can help push along and do the legwork and then get the assistance of
a grant.
Yeah.
Do we want to look at, and Commissioner Milch, I know that kind of talking a little bit about that simple thing like on the trolley trail, Abernathy to Portland Avenue, kind of the lack of access there. Does this board want to, the commission want to look at some more of those kind of transportation related items, whether it be to bicycles or certainly cars? Do we want to have more of a transportation focus somewhere in here?
Oh, I think we have enough to consider. If we have any extra time. If anybody else has anything further they'd like to add, I'd like to move on to business from the commission.
Do we need to make a
I think I have clarity that you're looking to include the items that City Administrator Betts had forwarded on, and you wanting to
Get the
some
blessing of the council.
clarification on the transportation parking management strategies. If that
Yes.
is going to be something that's addressed under the climate friendly item number 3.
Correct.
And then forward that on to the council for their advisement as to how they would like to
What's
see
the
you
priority
proceed.
and get their blessing, yes.
Am I understanding that correct?
Now, if I may just mention, because I know we had talked about before we understood that the transportation parking management might be tied in with the climate friendly communities. Let's say that in fact it is not significant. Would we add 4 in as its own item?
You mean 5?
What would become 5?
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
4 from our previous work plan.
I'm good with
Would
that.
it become an additional item?
Yes.
That if that's how you're wanting to proceed, yes, I can make a note of that.
Okay.
Is that a consensus of the?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Milch, any business you'd like to discuss?
I was reviewing some old communications I'd had when I was serving the city in another capacity several years ago, and have not got rid of them out of fear that the FBI would raid my home and take my computer. And I found a communication I had with a constituent who was asking me about fence height regulations in the city of Gladstone. And I referred her to the fact that our code, which we see in what was given to us tonight, it's section 3 of the very first accessory uses allowed. When located between the front lot line and the front building line, fences and walls shall not exceed 3 feet in height, and fences and walls not subject to that subsection shall not exceed 6 feet in height. City council meeting last week, they were talking about the plan for Meldrum Bar Park, and one of the things that there was a lot of interest was a leash-free dog park area. A lot of people have dogs that can jump over a 3-foot fence. This woman who communicated with me, and this was several years back, her understanding was that Clackamas County had a 4-foot limit for front yard fences. She said 4 feet and 7 feet. I think it's still 6 feet for the backyard. Although,
there is no
requirement in the front.
Oh, not a requirement. Oh, no height requirement?
There's no maximum height for frontage?
Not in front of the building. It's the same, 6 feet.
Oh, okay. Well, I had read something different about anything beyond the, even with the lot line marking in front of the house. But anyway, I'm just thinking, if we don't have a dog park, maybe we should allow 4-foot high fences for people who have dogs that can jump over a 3-foot fence. I don't want to introduce legislation, but if we approve the rest of this, might be something to consider.
This is located between the front lot line and the front building line. Fences and walls shall not exceed 3 feet in height.
Yeah, that's what we have now.
Yeah. But you're saying that.
Oh, she's saying for the county, unincorporated county.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's no.
One concern about changing that is as you're exiting your driveway, you want clear visibility in both directions. And if you have a lower car, then that 3 feet allows you to see over the fence, but a 4-foot fence may block your visibility for oncoming traffic.
Excellent point. Thank you.
That's all.
Andrell, do you have any business?
Nope, I have no new business. Thank you.
Commissioner Mercero, do you have any business to share?
No business tonight.
Okay, Commissioner Smith.
Yes, 2 things. The September 20th meeting, I'm going to miss my first planning commission meeting in 4+ years. I'm going to be on vacation. I'm sad to miss it. I do want to mention just briefly cars and parking. There's a lot of things going on in transportation. I think back to when City Hall was being approved, there was some concern about moving the municipal court from Portland and Dartmouth down to the end, and could TriMet possibly route buses, since a lot of the people that are handled in there have lost their driver's licenses. And didn't have the capability to drive. TriMet came and pretty much told us in nothing flat they weren't changing anything. So first of all, personally, I'm all for buses, light rail, walking, cycling, every possible kind of transportation alternative. But wheeled vehicles are a significant part of our society, and they need to be taken care of also. There's a huge change going on in automobiles right now. I'm the proud owner of a Tesla. Electrical vehicles continue to grow, and they're going to be a significant portion, and will do a lot to reduce carbon emissions. Commissioner Langston made a comment, which is one of my favorites, about got to keep moving. Vehicles are much more efficient and produce far less pollution when they're moving, not sitting, idling in traffic. The last thing about parking, we've already seen right here in Gladstone in the recent past, Webster Road apartments were built maybe 15 years ago. They're already out of parking because of change in demographics and the way people live. Not everybody lives in a traditional family environment anymore, where you've got two people who are a couple and maybe they have a family. It's often multiple adults living in the same location, all that have a car.
Yep.
Webster Road, they literally had to go out and buy more property to take care of parking. Wheeled vehicles are here. They're an integral part of our economy. Fred Meyer can't put pallets on buses and get them to their stores. 5 minutes looking at I-5 transportation will indicate how important wheeled vehicles are. And we need to consider them, not cater to them necessarily, but they're part of the gearbox or the teeth that go around that make the whole thing work. And I have a problem with bringing more people into Gladstone and not providing a place for them to put their vehicles, since there aren't a lot of other ways to get here. There's no light rail. Busing is sparse compared to other parts of the metro area. So I've mentioned a municipal parking lot before, which Oregon City makes great use of. And somewhere down the line, I think that seems to make some sense for Gladstone. Could be used for a lot of other things besides, employees parking that work on Portland Avenue, visitors, Saturday markets, festivals, music, events, a lot of things that a municipal parking lot can be used for. And I far exceeded what I felt like I wanted to say. Thank you for indulging.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. You're next.
Appreciate those comments. That's, people in cars, a lot of them, and parking will be an issue for us, I think, downtown, especially as we look to grow more. I think we have to keep in, being a member of the transportation board, we look at, we've had things on our agenda for a while. Traffic is starting to increase. People are getting out there more, I think, in a lot of ways, especially 2 years out from COVID. And it's been pretty noted, whether it be with law enforcement or whomever, people haven't been driving at their best in the past couple of years. And we see that, being someone who lives on Oakfield Road, talks to a lot of people out there. We've had at least 2 motorcycle crashes. We've had a couple crashes at Collins Crest. As we look at Gladstone having more units and the population increasing and more cars, I think that it's going to be important for us to really take a look at, some of the speeds and ways of calming traffic through our city, especially through our 2 main arterials, which are 99 and Oakfield. 99 is a little out of our hands because we have to work with ODOT, but Oakfield and Webster, we have some control over. So I really hope that folks that might be listening or here on this commission might kind of, keep that in mind as we look forward, as things might come up regarding speed reduction in our city or other traffic calming measures. And that's all I've got for you. Thank you.
I have no business at this time. I want to thank everyone for their input, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
So Commissioner Langston made a motion to adjourn, and Commissioner Milch seconded the motion. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Milch,
Yes.
Commissioner Langston,
Yes.
Commissioner Labonte,
Yes.
Commissioner Pat Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Mercero,
Yes.
Chair Smith.
Yes. Meeting is adjourned at 8:20.